And while skeptics dismiss much of this as pareidolia, the human tendency to see meaningful shapes in random data, it's worth remembering that not all patterns are imaginary. If we saw a perfect hexagon or a set of parallel beams sticking out of the ground here on Earth, we wouldn't just shrug and call it coincidence. We'd investigate. In the grand scheme, these anomalies serve as visual whispers from worlds we've only begun to explore. Are they the byproducts of unique planetary geology? Or could they be something more? Traces of a forgotten past, remnants of an ancient civilization, or artifacts left behind by visitors from elsewhere? We may not have definitive answers yet, but the fact that these strange formations exist at all is enough to keep the questions alive. In the end, whether you believe these anomalies are natural wonders or the fingerprints of intelligence, one thing is certain: they invite us to look closer. They challenge us to question the safe, familiar story that the Moon and Mars are simply dead, silent worlds. And they remind us that the universe still has plenty of secrets hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice. If strange geological formations raise questions, then the next category of discoveries raises something far more provocative: the possibility that what we're seeing on Mars and the Moon could be evidence of past or hidden technology. These aren't just oddly shaped hills or suspiciously straight lines. We're talking about anomalies that, in photographs, appear mechanical, metallic, or manufactured. Objects that seem like they could have been assembled rather than formed. On Mars, one of the most intriguing cases is the so-called Mars monolith, a tall rectangular block photographed by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter in 2009. Standing out sharply against the dusty ground, it resembles the iconic monolith from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Some scientists suggest it's simply a large boulder that fractured cleanly, but its razor-straight edges and smooth surfaces have convinced others that it might not be entirely natural. Then there's the image from the Curiosity rover showing what appears to be a fragment of a shiny metallic object partly buried in sand. NASA explained it as possibly a piece of the rover's own hardware broke off. But skeptics were quick to point out that its location was far from the rover's previous path, making that explanation less certain. Equally fascinating are reports of wheel-like tracks on Mars, spotted in satellite imagery in regions where no rover has ever been. These parallel grooves appear etched into the surface, sometimes stretching for hundreds of meters. While some attribute them to natural erosion channels, others can't ignore the uncanny resemblance to tire marks, as if some kind of vehicle had once crossed those plains. On the Moon, anomalies take a slightly different form. There's the infamous Shards tower allegedly photographed by Lunar orbiter missions, which some researchers claim rises several kilometers into space. If true, its sheer height and needle-like shape would be unlike anything known to form naturally on a small, airless body like the Moon. Another controversial find is the Ecassil structure, said to appear as a partially transparent, angular object hovering above the lunar surface in certain images. While mainstream explanations cite image artifacts or camera reflections, some insist it's evidence of artificial construction. One Apollo-era photograph in particular, taken during a pass over the Moon's far side, shows a collection of angular shapes that appear to form a cluster, almost like a small base. These structures have right angles, repeating patterns, and even shadow profiles that suggest vertical walls. NASA later described them as streaks of light and shadow on rugged terrain. But for many, the level of symmetry seen in those shapes is difficult to dismiss as random. The idea that these could be remnants of ancient civilizations, either native to these worlds or from elsewhere, is naturally controversial. Mainstream scientists demand extraordinary evidence for such extraordinary claims. But it's worth noting that technology, if left untouched for thousands or millions of years, would degrade, collapse and erode until it became nearly indistinguishable from its surroundings. If an ancient outpost existed on Mars or the Moon millions of years ago, all we might see today are fragments, outlines, or buried remains. There's also the possibility that some of these objects aren't ancient at all, that they're part of hidden or classified operations. For example, theories persist about secret lunar missions that never made it into the history books, possibly placing equipment or structures on the moon for surveillance, research, or even resource extraction. While such claims often drift into conspiracy territory, they're fueled by real historical secrecy, like the fact that many Apollo mission transcripts were classified for years before being released. Adding to the intrigue are stories from astronauts themselves. Some Apollo crew members, in interviews and leaks, have hinted at things they couldn't talk about or uneasy feeling of being watched on the moon. While these statements are often vague and open to interpretation, they add a layer of mystery to already puzzling photographic evidence. On Mars, the idea of current hidden technology is less about human secrecy and more about the possibility of active monitoring or exploration by unknown entities. Some rover images appear to show small, unusual objects that change position between photos, leading a few researchers to speculate about mobile devices or probes. NASA usually attributes such changes to shifts in lighting, wind-blown debris, or image stitching errors. Pun in. Still, the notion that Mars might not be entirely deserted captures the imagination. Ultimately, whether these strange objects are remnants of long-lost civilizations, products of classified human activity, or even artifacts from visiting extraterrestrial technology, the evidence, though inconclusive, is compelling enough to keep the debate alive. The challenge lies in the fact that without physically retrieving and analyzing these anomalies, we are left with photographs, pixels, and interpretations. Yet even with those limitations, the consistent pattern is hard to ignore. Objects with precise geometry, metallic sheen, or mechanical resemblance appearing in places we've been told are untouched for billions of years, they may be nothing more than nature's handiwork. Or they may be the faint signatures of technology, faded, broken, but still whispering across time and space that someone at some point was here before us. And that brings us to the heart of the mystery. If such technology did exist on Mars or the Moon, who built it? And more importantly, why did they leave? So far, we've explored the strange formations on Mars and the Moon, some that resemble natural wonders and others that hint at possible technology. But every time these images surface, one thing inevitably follows: the debate. And it's here, in this ongoing tug-of-war between scientific explanation and conspiracy speculation, that the mystery takes on a life of its own. From NASA official stance to the claims of amateur researchers, the conversation around these anomalies often feels like two entirely different realities. On one side, space agencies and many in the scientific community maintain that nearly all these mysteries have mundane explanations. Erosion by wind or micrometeorites, the play of light and shadow, imaging glitches, or naturally occurring minerals that reflect sunlight in strange ways. For them, these are interesting but ultimately unremarkable phenomena, valuable mostly for understanding planetary geology. On the other side, you have independent analysts, UFO researchers, and even a few whistleblowers who argue that the public is not being told the full story. They claim that some anomalies are deliberately downplayed, cropped out of official releases, or even airbrushed from archival images. The reasoning, they say, ranges from avoiding public panic to protecting classified information. This tension is not new. Since the earliest days of space exploration, rumors have circulated about hidden discoveries. In the 1960s, before the first Apollo landing, there were already whispers that the moon might hold evidence of previous visitors. And in the decades since, every major planetary mission, from Viking to the Mars rovers, has been met with both wonder and suspicion. One of the main points of contention is control over the raw data. While NASA and other agencies make most of their imagery publicly available, they also process the files before release, correcting for distortion, removing noise, and enhancing contrast. Critics argue that this processing can obscure small but important details. In some cases, images of anomalies appear in one release but seem altered or missing in later versions, leading to accusations of deliberate editing. Agencies respond by pointing out that changes are due to different image calibrations or camera angles, but for conspiracy theorists, the pattern feels too consistent to ignore. Then there's the role of pareidolia, the human tendency to see meaningful shapes in random patterns. Scientists lean heavily on this concept when explaining away faces, machines, or structures in planetary photos. They argue that our brains are wired to find patterns, an evolutionary trait that once helped us spot predators in the wild, but that this also means we often see meaning where there is none. Conspiracy advocates counter with a simple question. If the shapes were on Earth with their straight lines, perfect curves, and metallic shine, would we dismiss them as coincidence? Or would we investigate? A few high-profile voices have added fuel to the debate. Former NASA astronauts, such as Edgar Mitchell, have publicly expressed beliefs in extraterrestrial life and suggested that some discoveries may have been kept from the public. While Mitchell never claimed first-hand knowledge of alien structures on the Moon or Mars, his statements about secrecy in government space programs have kept the speculation alive. The debate also thrives because it taps into a larger, almost primal curiosity. The possibility that we are not the first intelligent beings to explore our solar system. For those on the conspiracy side, the stakes are high. If just one anomaly turns out to be genuine evidence of technology, it would rewrite history, forcing us to reconsider our place in the cosmos. For scientists, the stakes are equally high, but in a different way. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and accepting unproven theories risks undermining the credibility of serious research. Media plays its part too. Every few years, a viral anomaly makes headlines. The Mars face, the Moon spire, the alien base on the Moon's far side. News outlets frame these with just enough mystery to spark clicks and debate, but rarely follow up when official explanations emerge. The result is a cycle where speculation grows faster than facts, and the public is left with more questions than answers. So where does this leave us? Somewhere in the middle, perhaps. Skepticism is healthy. Without it, we risk believing every shadow is a spaceship. But curiosity is also essential. Without it, we might overlook real discoveries. It's possible, even likely, that many anomalies are just tricks of nature, but it's also possible that a small number of them are not. And until we send missions capable of physically examining these sites up close, drilling, sampling, testing, the debate will rage on. The beauty of this discussion is that it keeps Mars and the Moon alive in our imagination. They're not just distant, lifeless rocks. They're worlds with stories to tell. Whether those stories are purely geological or something more profound, they remind us that exploration is never just about data. It's about mystery, discovery, and the thrill of asking what if. In the end, the debate between science and conspiracy isn't a barrier to understanding. It's part of the journey. It challenges scientists to provide clearer evidence, and it pushes enthusiasts to think critically about the claims they encounter. Most importantly, it ensures that the strange objects seen on Mars and the Moon will continue to capture our attention, inspire our imagination, and perhaps one day reveal truths that are stranger than we ever dared to believe.